Okay, so the problems faced by the host countries. We left here and we start again from here. So, as we said earlier, that the multinational take the advantage of different rules and regulations in different countries, and especially in the LEDs, means less economically developed countries, they take the advantage of less strict rules and regulation. Although all the laws, all the rules and regulation prevail there, but since LEDs are interested in getting the foreign exchange, so they give a sort of relaxation to them. And the safety and other laws are not followed properly. As I said in the previous lecture, the example of Union Carbide plant, where an very hazardous incident happened, and the methyl isocyanate was leaked, and there was a death of about more than 30,000 people and injuries of more than 500,000 people. Okay, then if multinational is operating in direct competition with local firms, then local economy may be adversely affected. Means the local firms will be out of the business. Okay, so as I am saying, that the multinationals are becoming into competition with the local firms, and this will affect the economy adversely. An example of this is the competition between the Star Sports and the PTV. It's a bit old, say example, because now PTV has its own sports channel, PTV Sports. But when the PTV was the alone channel in here as PTV, and for the World Cup and for other tournaments, the rights were sold. So then came there the Star Sports, and Star Sports, because of its influence, because of being a multinational, took the rights, and then PTV has to purchase the rights from the Star Sports. So the multinationals are having an influence on the local companies, on the local governments as well. So this may result in the closure of the local businesses as well, which is again adverse effect on the economy. Now the majority of world's remaining natural resources are in LEDs. So why they move here in the LEDs? Only for the sole purpose of having access to these local resources. So in order to have the access on the local valuable resources, they move to the LEDs. Here, the example is of the OMV, which is a multinational oil extraction company of Austria, having head office in Vienna. And on the other side, our local company, which is OGDCL, means Oil and Gas Development Company Limited of Pakistan. So they are competing with this local firm. Again, OGDCL is an oil exploration company, but it's of Pakistan, and OMB is a multinational. So why they moved over here instead of having OGDCL here, only for the sole purpose of having an excess of our natural resources. And they are very much aware that that we are very rich in all the mineral resources. one of which is the oil. Our Balochistan province is rich in oil, especially the shale oil. The shale oil is the oil which is present in the rocks, like America. America is also very rich in shale oil. So they are moving into LEDs, into less economically developed countries for the purpose of getting a hand on our valuable resources. So these are the problems which, because of their movement, because of their moving in to the LEDs, they arise because of these. Okay, now we'll have a summary of this. We studied the local business, the national business, and right, the summary, as we are going to discuss, we have studied the local business, the national business, and the multinational business. So a summary of it is, for the local business, we have the example of a hairdresser or a food retailer. Now, what could be the likely objectives of this local business? The first objective, the far most objective for this local business would be the survival. Then survival or providing a service, that is also an objective, or satisfying, means satisfying the customer, satisfying the people. And now, as we said, the possible legal structure for such local businesses would be a sole trader, a sole proprietorship, or maybe a private limited company. It's maybe, most of the cases, it's a sole proprietorship, sole trader, or then a private limited company. There is a possibility of partnership as well for the local business. Then as it expands, it becomes a national business. As we discussed, the example of a national business is a supermarket. And in my previous discussion, I gave the example of Tafsal Electronics and the name Electronics. Now, what could be the objectives of these national firms? Their objective could be maximizing the profits. And again, providing the service. And the possible legal structures for these national firms could be the partnerships, or the private limited companies, or a public limited company. There is also a possibility of sole trader as well. I have not written over here, but there is a possibility. But most of the cases, since it's a larger firm as compared to a local business or a sole trader, so that's why the possible legal structures are partnerships, private limited, or public limited. And as we move on, the growth occurs, we become multinational. The examples are the car manufacturers, the computer manufacturers, and what could be the objectives of such multinationals? Their objectives are wealth maximization, or growth, or the market dominance. And the possible legal structures for these multinationals could be the public limited company. मीटिंग चल रही है।
मास्टर तो ना आया do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man. Shit, I'm saying. You. Get out of here for real. I'm saying, get out of here for real. I'm saying. Not bad. Hello, flower. दोबारा
इंटरनेट का बहुत मसला है। इसको फिर शुरू से शुरू करें हम। ये तो रिकॉर्डिंग में ये सारा कुछ नहीं आ नहीं रहा होगा, तो उसको क्या करें, इसको कैसे अपलोड करेंगे? Off the meeting. Mute. Okay, students, sorry for this a long pause because of unstable internet connection. You have to bear with us. Okay, after concluding the section of this local business, the national business, and the multinational business, we move on to the international trade. So all countries in the world, they somehow engage in the trade, which is termed as international trade, means importing and exporting to other countries. In the recent years, there have been tremendous growth in the world trade. The huge expansion in trade in certain countries like China, USA, and European Union had a great impact on their economic development. And the impact of their economic development has also an impact on the other countries as well. Most of the time, these countries are the countries which are exporting their produce. Whatever they are manufacturing, they are most of the time exporting. And the other countries which are importing, again, they are having an impact on their economic development as well. What could be the risks involved in the international trade? First risk is the loss of output and jobs of the domestic firms. which cannot compete effectively with the imported goods. As you are well aware, if so the local businesses which cannot compete with the imported goods. You are well aware of the example which I am going to give you is the competition between the locally manufactured cars and the imported cars. Even a local manufactured cars, which you can say a Toyota Altis, which is a hi-fi car in the local manufactured cars, that locally manufactured car cannot compete even a 660cc car manufactured and imported from the other country, like Japanese car. They have given all the facilities, all the safety measures to their produce. However, since we are less economically developed countries and we have not that type of strict rules and regulation, so all the safety measures are not followed here. It's a very big example that we cannot compete with the imported goods. Then decline in the domestic industry. Which domestic industry? Which is not producing the things which are being imported here. Then newly established business, they find it very difficult to compete with the imported goods and they become out of the business. And there is a decline in the industry that produce very important strategic goods like coal and the food stuff, etc. The risk involved, some importers dump their goods at a very low price in competition with the local firms. And since the local firms are already in problem, they cannot compete with this dumping and they become out of the business. Similarly, if the value of the imports exceeds value of the exports for several years, this could have a very bad impact uh, on our trade balance. We lose tremendous amount of foreign exchanges here, and we are a huge we are facing a huge amount of debt. We lose foreign exchange here. So what could be the trade barriers? So the most common forms of trade barriers, you have gone through these, are the tariffs. What are the tariffs? The taxes imposed on imported goods, to make them more expensive than they would otherwise be. And why they are imposing the tariffs? Because to protect the local produce. Quotas, limits on the physical quantity or value of certain goods that may be imported. This is another trade barrier. And voluntary export limits, an exporting country agrees to limit the quantity of certain goods sold to one country. So this is another trade barrier. No, in order to improve the international trade, we are moving to a regime of free trade, where what is free trade? Where there are less trade barriers. There are no restrictions. There are no trade barriers. And so there is no prevention or there is no limit on imports and exports between the countries. So that is a free trade. And on the other side of it is the protectionism. What is protectionism? Where you are using the barriers in order to restrict the trade. Why they are doing that? In order to protect their domestic industry. right? Protectionism, the example of protectionism is our car industry. They have imposed many type of restrictions in order to promote own local car manufacturing industry, and they don't allow the import of the cars because they know that that will spoil the whole industry. So we have a free trade regime. We have on the other side is the protectionism. What could be the benefits of free trade? Why they are into the free trade? Because the international trade offers a much wider choice of the goods and services. Because of the imports, imports of raw materials can allow a developing economy to increase its rate of industrialization. So for LEDs, again, imports are very important. And if we are having a free trade, it means we have to pay lesser amount, which will again have a good impact on the economy of LEDs. Then importing products create additional competition for domestic industries, and this encourages them to keep the cost and price low and increase the quality in order to compete the imported goods. Again, this is again a benefit for the local industry of the free trade. Now, the countries can begin to specialize in those products they are best at making. This is again, it termed as a comparative advantage. You must have gone through this comparative advantage in your economics course. Now, comparative advantage. So, a person or a country, I would say country, with who is better in producing a certain thing, the country will go with that thing, and the other things that will prefer to be imported into that country. Like if France is good in producing different types of fragrances or the perfumes, so it will go on with this product, and the France will import the other things. And if like Pakistan, it is not good at in producing the different fragrances or the perfumes, it will prefer to import the perfumes from the France. And on the other side, if it's a agriculture country and it is good in producing wheat or rice or cotton, it will prefer to produce that, and then it will be exported, and it will be imported into the countries which are not good at producing such things. This will impart specialization to the countries, and specialization leads to the economies of scale, right? Thank you, students. Today, due to the internet connection, we cannot cover a lot. Next time, inshallah, we'll cover the rest of the thing. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.